This podcast is created for farmers and powered by Pioneer Agronomy to bring you agronomic insights and proven solutions to fuel forward-thinking farming.
Welcome to the Indiana Pioneer Agronomy Podcast, February 12th edition. I'm your host, Ben Jacob, joined this week, as always, by Carl Jorn from Northwestern Indiana. Carl, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Ben. As a one-time Kansas City resident, though, coming off the Super Bowl weekend was a little bit of a disappointing performance. But as a lifelong, long-time suffering Bears fan, it pales in comparison to just year after year of agony and defeat.
Well, the Jacob household skipped the Super Bowl largely. I hopped on in the second half just a little bit to just to confirm what the internet was telling me, that it was a complete shellacking of the
That's right.
Chiefs, and having done so, moved on with my life. But we're not a huge sports household. We do check in occasionally for major events, but I didn't really need to see that one, nor
You
am I
missed
all
very
that
little.
yeah, nor am I all that compelled by halftime performances. So
Yes.
we had a nice calm night in the Jacob household without going too far into the sports contest. But speaking of contests, Carl, we've been somewhat remiss in circling back to the winner of the hybrid, and I guess this year, varietal draft
That's right.
that we kicked off across the area last spring. And I understand that you've dove into the results and have an update, and you can shake out where we all stood. So Carl, I'll be honest, here as we sat, in the middle of February, I'm solely focused on the calendar year 2025. I don't even remember what I drafted, let alone what anybody else drafted. But I
Yes.
assume that folks that had corn products like 1742 or 13777 performed very well in this year's hybrid draft. So why don't you remind us where everything stood?
Well, good recollection on your end there, Ben Jacob. You are correct that hybrids like 1742 definitely seem to rise to the top. Reminding the listeners, this was the first year that we decided to throw in soybeans as well into the mix. So if you'll recall, we had a 2-round draft, 11 participants across the states of Indiana and Illinois, and the purpose behind this exercise is, one, bragging rights for the victor at the end of the year, but two, it helps us kind of build some ownership over products, if you will, as we're walking fields and checking in with our colleagues from time to time on how their products are looking. And so it also gives you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain in terms of how one might try to project performance across a wider area. So what the best hybrid is across all of Indiana and Eastern Illinois may not necessarily be the highest performing product in your own locale, but that's what we're trying to approximate in this type of deal. So how we measure success is the way that we advise folks do on their own farm. Don't get hung up on just one location. The power in predicting performance is the more locations you have, the greater statistical certainty there is. And so with this, with this draft, you're looking at, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if memory serves, probably a couple, 300 different genetic plots across the state and a quarter that we're referring to of Indiana and Eastern Illinois. And so from there, you got to make the decision as the draftee. Did you want to pick a corn hybrid family, or did you want to pick a soybean variety? And so a little bit of gamesmanship there, was part of the process, as opposed to just looking at corn hybrids as we have in the past. So all of those platitudes aside, the number one performing product for Pioneer in the year 2024 was P1742 Chrome. That hybrid won. I think it was just about half as many plots as it was in. Again, exceptional performance, Ben, as we've seen out of that hybrid the last several years going now. For those folks that are up by me closer to Lake Michigan, they might get a little nervous planting a 117-day hybrid, but we're several years into this exercise of trying a little bit on your own farm and not being surprised when it winds up being the highest yielding product on one's acres. Tell me, are you surprised in terms of 1742 being the number one product for performance?
No, obviously not. Based on my comments to kick off there, 1742 is one that honestly we've been a little bit softer on from here south and probably what we should have been. It's phenomenal in the way that it moves north for the maturity that it has. There is a little bit of an area, say from Vincennes to Evansville, where
Mhm.
our other fuller season products are pretty competitive with it, but they don't move north as well. That's one of the most unique things to me about 1742 is the way that it moves north to south in that maturity range. um, when we had you mentioned the Chrome version of it, we had the Power Core version of it, the Power Core Enlist version outperforming just as well this year. I was looking at the Precision Planting, their PTI research update over the
Yes.
weekend. And if anybody follows the stock cropper on social media, but one of the guys that farms weird doing intercropping, putting cover crops out and intergrazing in strips throughout the season. That research summary is worth checking out. But one thing I'll say is that when they did their high management strips and that 1742 Chrome was, I believe, 434 bushels, and the nearest competitor was down around 380.
Okay.
And I bet if you look through those plots, Carl, you would find it winning plots down around 200 bushels as well. So
Yes.
it's just
Yes.
incredible versatility, regardless of what your cropping system is, I guess, and what your management is. It has a pretty good fit on every moderate to high productive acre, I would say.
I would concur. Everywhere we've tested it, it seems to be a winner and not by a small margin. So yes, correct in stating it was the 1742 family. So those results including the Power Core version of that product, which was new this year as well. So that Pat Ray took that hybrid with the second draft spot, and that led him to victory in our league for this year, repeating last year's championship that he won with the same hybrid, believe it or not. So, something to do with maybe the fortune of being in those top couple of draft spots here this year. But Pat, nevertheless, rode 1742's performance to a championship this year. As you go down the list of other products of impressive performance, the way that we measured was placing the top five of any Pioneer plot. And obviously, you get more points that accrue the closer to the very top of the plot ranking that you are, as opposed to that fifth spot. So Ben, would you be surprised if I told you that coming into the second spot and the third spot were not corn products, but soybean varieties?
No, not necessarily. I am a little bit surprised that there was anything that consistent given the year. And I'd remind everybody that another reason we added beans this year is because we turned over our entire bean lineup, more or less, as we moved into the Z series. But the way the year went and the stresses on beans, I am a little bit surprised to find that an individual variety performed consistently enough. I assume that in most areas there would be maturity groups rewarded based on the year that they had, but one could probably also suggest that there were planting date groups that were rewarded
Certainly.
just as much as maturity groups. So let me let me take a guess, Carl. I would say that in two and three you would have one of them. I would think would have to be the 32 Z91s,
Oh, that's a great guess. Yes.
and I would assume that the other one would be 37 Z06.
Wow, great guesses. That one rang in the number three bean spot, number four product overall. Number two product overall would be 31 Z03s. And that one taken by Kyle Quick. Great value. He got that in the 16th draft spot
Ooh,
of the 22 selections in our draft. So Kyle took that one. to third place. This is his second year in a row of being on the medal stand. So Kyle Quick padding his franchise's performance at this point. I think he's a consistent competitor. But Ben Jacob, no slouch yourself. It was actually you that selected 32 Z91s, which was the third best product overall on the Pioneer lineup this year in terms of being that dominating performer. So good on you for guessing it, and then that actually being your selection itself. That third product the second bean product that you'd guess, the third best product performance was 37 Z06s. They're taken by Andrew Farrell. So rounding it out from there, we're going to take a look at Nick Hedden with P10811. I think that's one that's garnered a lot of attention here from what it did in 2024, pushing the bounds of where that product has been placed in the past, and akin to 1742 to some degree. We're having a hard time finding spots where it is not an exceptional performer. In that regard, talk to your local, Pioneer sales rep about their experience with P10811 for more details there. But from that, would you care to take a guess which hybrid might ring in, thereafter?
Well, I mean, I called it out at the beginning. I'm surprised to find that 13777 hasn't been called off yet. There were. I would say that the strength of our lineup right now is just so unique throughout my career that I guess in some way I'm not surprised that it hasn't sorted out exactly the way that I felt it in the field. Other notable performers would be something like P14830 Chrome and AML. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those found themselves in the next spot.
Well, for those listening at home, know that I did not disclose to Ben any of the results, so this is all intuition on his part, and that would be correct. 14830 and 13777 hybrid families would fall in line directly thereafter. So for those keeping score at home, your 5 top performing corn products for the Ileana area this 2024 growing season would be 1742, 10811, 14830, 13777. And then let's see, one more to round it out to give you a 5th hybrid would be, drum roll please. Drum roll continues. P1222, which for those of you with excellent memories will recall that was the product that I was really kicking myself. I made the draft selection of P1170, thinking 1222 was off the board when I picked at the turn. Nick Hedden stole 1222 out from underneath me, and that wound up being a very wise selection on his part. That was the death knell for my team's outlook for the upcoming year. Still 1170, no slouch, but certainly did not have as wide of an area of being planted as what 1222 did. Thus, it did not have the opportunity to ring in as many top five results. So Ben, I think we talked through our top 3 soybean varieties. If memory serves, we said that the 2 that stood apart were 31 Z03s and 32 Z91s. Would you care to guess who would fall in that 3rd spot out of all the varieties? Actually, as I say that, I think you already guessed her. You already guessed the 3rd spot with the 37 Z06.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's sneak in a group 2 variety. Who do you think out of the group 2s would have floated to the top? If you had to hazard a guess.
I mean, you could go. I would either one of the 2.8s, but I'm going to say that the 28 Z89s probably eked ahead.
That's right. Yep, that is the Peking offering at the 2.8 maturity, and that was a selection made by the Paul Yoder, Mr. Hollywood for Pioneer himself, and he actually winds up taking 2nd place in the draft by that shrewd selection of 28 Z89s taken with the 19th overall selection. Those of you that are wondering what did he take in the 1st round, it would have been P13777, like Ben said, assumed contender for Pioneer's top hybrid. in terms of performance. So Ben, that rounds out what we have for this year's hybrid and varietal draft. Anything that catches your attention that one would consider a surprise, or did the chips fall as you expected?
Well, I would say that there are some regional differences, and then we always have products that don't perform maybe as well in plots as they do in the field. In
Yep.
my opinion, they tend to be some of our more stable products, maybe not as flashy on the top end. So, there's anybody that's had a product discussion with me knows that um, P15784 is a product that I'm very high on for a full season product with very
Yep.
moderate stature, good ear placement, stands great plant health, great grain quality. There's a lot to like about it. But it may get out horsed on the top end, but it's one that really kind of smooths out the yield monitor when you look at it. Um, the P10811 again is something that we've been softer on to the south, particularly on the western edge. And there's some management reasons why that I think we can work through on a case to case basis. I may not be as comfortable slamming it on every acre as some people are, especially to the north, but still a good all around product. So no, I don't think there are any huge surprises coming out of this. I guess if I had to pick one, well, a couple of things. Just with the year we had and the stresses we encountered, just the overall consistency of some of these products is is pretty incredible. If we rewind maybe 10 years, we would have had a different result, I think, with some of the stresses we had in this season. So,
Certainly.
so genetically, I feel like we've come a long way and we're in a great spot. I guess the one surprise I would have is maybe that there wasn't stronger full season bean performance, but I also have to keep in mind the area here would be pretty biased to pulling in that northeastern Illinois portion
Right.
is probably not going to dip into a ton of the fuller season beans. So it probably makes sense from a standpoint when you're rolling up what one. And then also keep in mind that most of these plots finished with, I don't know, the last 60 days of the season without a drop of rain tends not to reward full season varieties
That's
either,
right. That's right.
So, so yeah, no big surprises. I can rationalize through all that. How about you, Carl? Does anything stand out as particularly shocking?
No, and well, and just to your point on the fuller season varieties, admirable performance there. I don't have it ranked necessarily, but outperforming the shorter season varieties. I think just to your point, Ben, no, nothing really jumps out in terms of a surprise, which if I'm on the other side of this microphone listening to that should convey some confidence. I think when you get a recommendation from your Pioneer sales professional, it's founded in performance data, but there is also, a proven track record here. And so if we were to find some surprises, that might make one question, okay, how reliable is our predictive ability for which products are going to be the best? But I think if, you and I were to conduct a draft for 2025, I believe we could probably dial in what the top 5 corn hybrids and top 3 soybean varieties would be with some variation, but probably get pretty darn close because that's where we've been able to arrive as the Pioneer brand and giving folks certainty and consistency with their product offering. And I think that's exciting. So I'm glad that bared out in this exercise of the hybrid and varietal draft for 2024.
Yeah, I'm looking and speaking of 2025, looking forward to it on the corn side. Um, we're bringing quite a few new products out across the maturities that are in play for all of us. So it's going to be a pretty exciting year out in the field as we get to blow these products up and put them on more acres and really kind of see where they're going to fit before we get them in volume. So if we have this discussion again next winter, I agree 100% with the consistency and understanding placement, but expect to see some new names and faces in this group up amongst the top 5 or so.
Absolutely. I'd imagine we'll probably displace half of them, on the corn side, if not more. We shall see. But with that, Ben, appreciate you asking about the hybrid draft. Good, we could put a bow on it here because before too long, it's going to be plot planting season, and we'll be at it again discussing which products are our favorites for this upcoming year and seeing how our teams perform.
Absolutely. I get to this point at certain point in the spring every year, and I know we're still in winter here in mid-February, but usually about the beginning of March, I'm really ready for planters to start rolling, and I think I'm there. We had one 70-degree day down
Yep.
here last
Yep.
week, and that kind of flipped the switch for me. I'm ready. I'm ready for spring to get here and ready for planters to get in the ground. And when there's corn in the ground, there's hope. So we'll get there soon enough, though. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We'll be there any day now, it feels like.
That's right. Well, Ben, if folks want to follow along with you on the internet in terms of what to be thinking of this time of year or what's on your mind this time of year, where may they do so?
Yep, you can find me on X at the Ben Jacob and on Facebook at Ben Jacob Agronomy. How about you, Carl?
Same places on X at Cjorn and on Facebook at Cjorn Agronomy. Very good. Well, with that, we'll wrap up this edition of the Indiana Pioneer Agronomy Podcast. Appreciate you listening along, following us with this journey of the hybrid draft, the varietal draft, and looking forward to bringing you more content here in a couple of weeks for making plans for 2025. So with that, we will see you down the road.
Thank you for listening to this episode from the Pioneer Agronomy team. Be sure to visit pioneer.com/podcasts to access additional episodes and learn more about our extensive on-farm data and innovative digital tools that are fueling forward-thinking farming.